Welcome to one of those editions of Smashing Hours where we just get together and talk to wonderful people from the community about wonderful things that they are doing in their life and also what they're sharing with the wonderful community as well. And I'm very, very happy to have with us today Christine, connecting from Madrid all the way, coming, traveling,
Hello.
joining all the way from Madrid. What is the weather like over there, Christine?
It's
now?
amazing. It's 28 degrees and I'm in a t-shirt and it's fantastic after 10 years in Berlin.
Right, I'm connecting from Berlin and it's very cold and I'm also in a t-shirt and it's freezing, but yeah, I just felt like, okay, maybe a bit of refreshment would be great. So it's very, very nice to see you here with us, Christine, and welcome everyone coming in. The way it works, by the way, so anybody is attending for the very first time, it's actually quite simple. We don't have big fancy rules that you have to accept and understand, but it's a conversation, kind of more like an informal conversation about many things, from Figma to just a career to life choices, right? And everything that's been happening also in between. And we're very much welcome to your questions. This is the hour for your questions, not necessarily for that I surely as a professional will have prepared. I think I do have some questions prepared, but I'm very much excited and looking forward to your questions as well. Now, first, let me just quickly introduce Christine. And I think we had the first call, I don't know, maybe half a year ago or so.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Because of moon learning. I know when I think about moon learning, I think we happen to be on Earth at this point, but we're going to learn, kind of moon learn. So maybe, Christine, you could just briefly share what moon learning actually is.
So Moon Learning is an online platform, like a learning platform that I started, and it's really purely around UX UI design. And so it's not that I'm saying it's this or it's that, it's just going to evolve like whatever is the recent topics. And the idea is that you can join it and you can start really from the beginning, and it starts with some basic UX UI concept through Figma. It gives you some idea about coding. And when I say coding, it's more about understanding why you would do certain things in UI, the way you do them. So it's more HTML, CSS, more sort of basic markup. And then I'm going to add some no code stuff like Webflow and things next year. And the idea is, that you can run through it, but you can also, if you have a specific topic, it's like different courses, you can also jump in and just take those courses. And it's me setting it up and teaching it and researching it and really having a lot of fun building it.
That's wonderful. Wonderful to see. It also looks amazing, by the way, too. Now, what I didn't mention, and I probably should have mentioned, is Christine is a UX UI designer. She has a lot of experience, like working with all kind of brands. Actually, originally, maybe not originally, but living at least for a long time in Berlin, Germany. Now moving to warm, beautiful Madrid, and running and headquartering, if it's even a word, I don't know, moon learning from there. But also, when I was looking at your portfolio and the client list, it looks really, really incredible. So maybe just before we start, Christine, you could kind of share a little bit of your story. How did you end up where you are today? I mean, you've been, you've been studying in ESCP Business School. You've been spending a lot of time in, in very different, quite complex projects, from what I could tell. So maybe you could just share a little bit of your story, like why, why did you decide to then say, all right, this is me, I'm going to be UX UI designer, this is my passion, this is my dedication, this is the way I'm going to live my life. So maybe you could share a little bit of the background.
So, well, the path was a bit like this, basically. And when you look at it in LinkedIn now, it looks like it's all nicely and planned and straight. And I think that's also what, for me, is really important with Moon Learning, that it's usually not a straight path, and it doesn't have to be a straight path. And so I started off originally, I always knew I wanted to do something in the creative, and I studied product design in London at St. Martin's, which was amazing studies, but I wasn't really a product designer. And then for our final talk, actually, Jonathan Ive, who was the designer at Apple then, he came and he gave us a talk. And this was just the year they were going to release the iPhone. And now you can calculate how old I am. And then, and he said, I'm going to release something amazing. And it's going to be a total game changer. And I can't tell you if it's going to be amazing. And he talked about Apple and everything. And it was like, wow. And it was really like that moment, all these things happened. Everything I had learned, we didn't learn UX UI. It didn't really exist in the way that we use it now. And so I carried on and I worked in branding and I worked in advertising and it was always great and always nice, but I always saw my friends who did stuff like typography and they were so good at it and so dedicated to this last little thing. And I was just like, no, I like it, but I don't that last thing was always missing until a friend convinced me to do something to help him with web design, and not only with the branding of a project. And I had this fear because I was like, oh, but it's programming and I don't know that. And he was like, well, you can sit with my team and they can tell you. And so it was this great moment where I could ask all of these questions. And suddenly I was like, wow, this is really great. I actually liked that you need to know this technical stuff, that you can play with those constraints. And at that time, it was still very different. We had like 960 grids and then responsive suddenly, because it was that old.
Yes. Yeah, I remember
So
that.
it's like but you sort of could grow with it, and it was so exciting. And also nobody really knew what they were, it wasn't like I have my university degree and then I do this and then I do that. It was more just like, just try it, just if it works, it's great. And so yeah, I think I took it from there, and from that moment on I really enjoyed this experience of learning. And I looked for boot camps. So I did a boot camp, the first one they had in San Francisco, but it was coding, like really it was like Ruby on Rails and stuff, and I wanted to do front end and it didn't exist.
Right.
But I really got into this thing of always jumping in and learning and stuff, and I wanted to actually build this page of all the things that I had learned along the way that I liked, and have this one base where you can ask all the stupid questions, where you can ask like, but how does it become responsive? But why? What do I do with my typography? But what frame size do I actually use on Figma? And so that's how I got to learning.
Right. I think also your microphone also fell.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. But it's really interesting for me, because for me, if I look back and I think about the work that I was doing, maybe also around the same time, it feels like in many ways I'm always there's always this one project. There's always this one thing that kind of in some way defines and tells me, okay, I want to do more of that.
Yeah.
So I remember kind of doing some project where I would be slicing something and I had all these horrible issues to explore, and I thought, this is not what I want. I don't want to be the slicer. I had no idea if there was a job like that, like a slicer, HTML, CSS, whatever that was. But of course, there are plenty of tools like PSD to HTML and all the others at the time. And so I definitely knew, okay, I don't want to do that, right? And then there were also other things and other projects I was involved with. At some point, I had to do a print project, and I felt, oh, I love typography, right? But oh my, this is just really, making sure that everything sits properly, that no lines hang and all of that. This seems like so much work. I don't want to do that. Well, maybe sometimes, but not too much, right? Did you have that one project where you would say, wow, that was something where I really understood that this is mine, this is my thing? Or that one particularly complicated maybe project, or particularly challenging one, maybe early in your career, kind of as you kept growing, where you said, wow, this is probably one of the best things that I've done in my life?
That's a difficult question. I really don't think there were projects that kicked off stuff, like the first one when I was the first time actually sitting with programmers at the table, and it wasn't this boundary, they're the programmers, there's the designers. That was sort of one thing. And then, but I think it was also a lot of the time, it was, I still had to do a lot of projects in Photoshop. And it was more of the moment where someone told me, look, there's this thing, I started with Sketch, and they were like, you can use Sketch. And I was like, wow, this is like amazing, because suddenly I was so fast. And then there was like someone saying, why don't you try Figma? And you can do, suddenly there were components and there were all of these things. And I think it was more, rather than the project, it was really the software, which sounds a bit sad, should be a creative project, but it was really the software, where suddenly you became from being so slow in Photoshop and just not touching the real thing actually, to becoming really, really fast. And then actually also trying out sort of own projects in the browser and doing little samples. And it's more like meeting people along the way, especially developers, that encourage you to try out a little bit. Right. I think that was the moment where it made click, because I just really liked that it became a real thing, that it wasn't just on my Photoshop or on that way it used to be, that it was suddenly this real thing, and then I could like connect it with some CSS and see what happens and really understand the things. And
so in my case, it was probably 98. It was Shockwave. or Macromedia Dreamviewer, of course, later on.
Oh yeah,
I felt, I mean, I don't know, don't judge me, everyone sitting in this room. I did like Dreamweaver for a very
I
short
did
period of
like
time.
it. I liked it.
You like? Okay, here we go. So
It was
it's
the
two of us
first
now.
glimpse I think I got, and then it died. I don't know what happened with it. It
Yeah,
came back a
then
year later and it was
yeah,
gone.
it was purchased by Adobe, and then things happen.
Oh really?
Eventually.
That's not going to
Yes.
happen again. So that's
No.
not fine. You know,
Hopefully.
Adobe doesn't buy stuff recently, so it's
No,
good.
not at all.
No,
Not at
no.
all. By the way, dear friends joining us in here, it's not going to be just a conversation between us two. We can definitely speak for hours. I'm pretty sure about that. But if you have any particular questions that you'd like to bring up, be it about Figma, be it about design, be it about UX, be it about UI, be it about anything in life, please bring them on in the chat, ideally. Or if you feel like you have a longer story to share, we are very much audio friendly as well. So please feel free to post your questions in the chat in the meantime. But Christina, you brought this really interesting point that I think is really still bothers me. I don't know, maybe this is why I can't sleep at night at times. Because you said, this, we were sitting just on the, in this between designers and developers, kind of creating this space between design and development. And I'm wondering, um, do you think that at this point in 2022, almost 2023, have we solved this issue of, handoff, if there is a handoff between design and development and back, and then endless conversations about the meaning of life and pixels and RAM units and everything else, and the right way of doing things or the wrong way of doing things, and the right tooling of, for doing those things or not? Are we done with this kind of problem, or is it still an issue?
No, we're never gonna be done
No,
until
no. I was hoping for the right answer,
and
for
it's
the
really
perfect
funny
answer.
because it's the thing when I prepare a new course, and you obviously you don't know what people want to build with it, right? Like you don't know if they want to build an app or whether they want to whether they work in a team or whether they work alone, whether they're freelancers. And usually people go like, so how does it work? And it's like, well, there isn't a solution because it really depends what you're building. If you're, for example, I talk to a lot of freelancers and I freelance a lot. So if I'm freelancing, then I don't need this. I usually don't have these huge design systems or teams or stuff. It's like, I really need a handoff because there's probably going to be a designer that a developer that I might never even meet. And there is going to be, limited hours and things. It's not the perfect setup, but it's just sometimes it just is like this. There is a budget as well, So I need some sort of handoff, and I wish we had another name for a handoff because handoff always sounds like I'm packaging it, I'm throwing it at you, and then I'm just gone.
you never see
And
again.
so it's well, I wish we had like a smoother word. Maybe you can invent a smooth word for it. That it's more like, because a handoff is more like, maybe call it a boomerang or something, because it's like, I mean, it's for me, it's the
Boomerang sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, so it's very frustrating, but it is. So it's really just for me, it's the first design freeze where I say, this is what I discuss and what we all like, and this is how I test it as far as I can in Figma, because I think you should do that a little bit. And now let's build it in. Ideally, I've talked to the developer before and in between and everything. And then you have to obviously go back and improve and sit together. But if you're working in a company, if you're working as something like, I don't know, Airbnb or something like that, you're not going to have like your file, your Figma file, your handoff, I imagine. And so you're going to work with a design system, and you're going to have established steps along the way. And so it's very different. And so I think it's more about knowing what you want to build, knowing the tools that you have at the moment, keeping up to date with what they do, and then really talking to your team. And I also think it's something that it's never mentioned, which I think though has a big impact, is how is your team functioning? It sounds a bit weird saying your handoff depends on the atmosphere in the team, but I find it makes a big difference whether there is a team and there is a good atmosphere, we get along, because you chat and you find solutions together, or whether there is just a development team somewhere completely different you might never meet, or there might be changes in the company and things like that. It is this whole handoff thing. It's the big human factor for me when it comes to development, when it comes to design and development. The rest the machine can do, basically.
Yes, I think it's interesting for me to see that very often it is indeed that the people factor that's actually, I mean, obviously it's much more important than pretty much any other problem that we have to deal with, be it design or be it development wise. But one thing that I see very often happening, even when it comes to like really setting up this wonderful guidelines. Okay, this is how we're going to set up our Figma projects, and this is how we're going to set up our coding environment, and everybody's happy in the beginning, and then eventually there is this friction of misunderstandings. So because designers tend to think that maybe this is how it should be, and we have, this is what the mockup and what it looks like. Then when it becomes comes to responsive behavior, comes to maybe slightly unexpected behaviors of really complex tables and things like that, then this friction comes up.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, and this is maybe an interesting conversation just in general. I mean, I don't know how many of, maybe it's a good question to ask here in the chat. So dear friends, if you are using Figma, please write a plus in the chat. And if you are not using something else, I don't know, Adobe XD or anything else really, could you write a minus in the chat?
Sorry, which one was the plus? I was just reading a question.
A plus was people do use Figma. So
yeah, a lot of
people do use Figma indeed. So I'm wondering, so Christine, maybe you could tell us a little bit, like, what is the level of documentation that you do when it comes to whatever we call it, the boomerang experience?
The boomerang experience.
Do you like have a full draft explaining like the entire story about this is what I do, this is my vision, this is what I want to do, this is how it's going to work and all of that, or even interactions, like for example, the transitions, the animations and all of those things? Will they be all living within Figma, or is it kind of a separate deliverable that you have on top of that? Like, what is your, maybe a little bit more about your process in then Figma?
I mean, it completely depends. Like if I'm freelance, like right now I'm full-time doing moon learning, but if you say like full freelancing, right? If I would be freelancing in a team, well, first of all, I have to look what the team has, and I ask for what documentation they have. Sometimes you enter a team and they have this amazing documentation, they have these processes, and they just want you to work on a feature or a special or something. And then usually it's set up, and then I work in Figma and I have a look how they document it. And I usually, as a freelancer, you stay usually in the Figma files, and then someone else is going to like guide you through what they need for the documentation. And if it's, and the other sort of more usual project that you get as freelancers is just building from scratch, like you're sort of doing the first design thing, like in a young startup or for companies. And then a lot of the time people ask you to design websites in Figma. And I have to say nowadays, if you're like, I don't know, if you're the lawyer company around the corner, and as soon as, I always say, as soon as it is something that you could print as a brochure, then I would really look at something, a no-code solution like Webflow or something like this, because it's just, you can do it in Figma and you can program it. It's going to be wonderful, but it's just going to, the budget you're going to have to spend on really good programming for a responsive, nice website from scratch, it's just sometimes not in line with what you're doing. But if you want a responsive web app, then of course you would use Figma. And then if there's no system in place and things, then what I usually do for sort of a first draft is that I have I do my design in Figma, like I sort of pick two screens, representational screens, like a mobile and a desktop, sort of a very common size. I have that on one page, and there I design. And this is really like where I talk about sort of, do you like it? What does it look like? All of these things. This is what sort of the client, the project manager, that people see. Then I have another file for my components and for my style and all of that. And then I have another section that I create that I label as well. I label it playground. And there I do all my sort of testings, because when I show you, like, this is what a card would look like, this is what a certain component would look like, I show you sort of in my sample size. But when I show you that, I already tried out in auto layout, sort of a quick test. Is that going to work across all screen sizes, more or less? You know, also a lot of stuff I can judge already without trying it, like what a card's going to look like. And then I'm going to test that. So I know, yeah, that's going to work more or less. So there's no crazy surprises. And then once we know that this is what we want for the first boomerang, then I start documenting it in my components. And so the developers and everybody would only look at my design that I show, my two screens sizes, and then they would look at my component and styles. And there I put, how does the typography behave? What colors? How are they used? Spacing system, and then all the components, master components. How do they behave when it becomes responsive? And then all the testing and playing I do in my other files. If someone wants from the design team wants to have a look, they can have a look there. And then in a further step, we could decide whether that lives in our own file in Figma. So I could have one for color, one for components, to pull in other projects, or whether in the long run they want to establish a system. But it would be, oh, someone's having a very loud noise here.
Yes.
But that would be, but you would have the base there already, and that's usually how I go. And that's also what in Moon Learning I would be teaching.
Right. That's excellent. Yeah, I have so many questions, but I do need to also be respectful of our audience here, because maybe there are certain things that that you struggle with. I mean, is there anything that you dislike in Figma? Maybe we can solve this for good and make your life better and happier forever. Who knows? Or maybe somebody's struggling and thinking, I feel so comfortable in Adobe XD. I mean, should I? Must I? Is it reasonable to switch? So what would you say to that question, Christine?
To the switching from other software. Yeah, I mean, I have that a lot. And I had just the other day when we did the workshop with Smashing Conference, there was one guy and he was super comfortable in XD, and he was like, oh, I hate it, because if you're really good at Adobe Suite, now it sounds a bit funny saying all of that, but you sort of, they're in a row and there's similar things. So I don't use XD. So I can't tell you about XD. I use Sketch, and Sketch was also super amazing. And I think it was all the groundstone for Figma, and it's just Figma went like this. So if your team uses another software and it works, then that's fine. I just think if you're freelancing, Figma is just getting so big that you might just want to join in. But it also doesn't mean that in 2 years there might not be another way to deal with all of this. And I mean, there's gonna be so many changes. It's not about being with one software. It's really about knowing your stuff and still knowing your software, because it's your tool. But yeah, you could use whatever you want, but I would recommend, if you want to work as a freelancer especially, or if you're starting something new, I would recommend Figma, because I think it's the best program on it.
But if somebody prefers to use Macromedia, Dreamweaver, or Photoshop, or
If
Fireworks,
I mean, there is still people. There is still. I still have people. I even have one friend who does like using Photoshop. There, I have to say, this is where I draw the line. I would not. If
so, you would not be like, if you meet somebody and at the cocktail party and they say that they're using Photoshop for websites and applications, you say that's it. I don't think we're going to have a conversation.
Turn around, I go, we can have a nice conversation, but we're probably not going to do a project together. But this is not because I'm saying like, oh my God, like, it's not design snobbery. It's really like, I cannot do certain things. I cannot test anything in Photoshop. Like, this is like, it's just not, it's called Photoshop for a reason. It's a really, really great photo editing software. If you work with photos, then use Photoshop. If you're layouting a magazine, you use InDesign. They're really great tools. But I'm also not going to lay out a magazine in Figma. And printers are probably going to get really upset with me.
I mean, you probably could, but
yeah, but you don't have the right colors. I mean, you work in RGB, and it's just like, it's, I mean, I also have people that I think they can lay out that website in PowerPoint, and there's a lot of people out there saying that it's not about the tool, it's about that's true. It is about your skill, but it's a bit like, if you're hiring an architect to build your house, then you really appreciate a vision and you really appreciate some aesthetics. But in the end, you also want that house to be built. So if there is absolutely no statics and the house collapses, or it goes into 3 times the budget when you're trying to build it, then you're not going to appreciate it. You still want them to know how the things work, and it's exactly the same, because it's not art. In the end, you're building a product. So absolutely. So I think you need to know the software. But you can use XD or Sketch. That's, if you're happy with that, that's not going to make a difference.
So at this point, I'm just curious, I do have to ask, so do you find yourself kind of sprinkling a little bit of CSS as well? So you would eventually say, okay, the developer has developed something, and then they wrote HTML and CSS and sprinkle a bit of JavaScript, and then you say, that's it, I need to adjust that CSS. Do you have that feeling, or do you say, okay, I feel comfortable, I live in Figma, my world is in Figma, I see this beauty and typography and all skills, it's nice. So CSS it's okay. So maybe I will just, the question is really, do you feel like sometimes there are certain things which would be better suited to experiment or play with, to adjust right in the code? Or would you say that you can feel very comfortable in a design tool as well?
Well, I would love to have the skills to just adjust all of that, but I think usually now you're having a framework and you're having all of these things, and it's just not my everyday business.
Right.
So I can try stuff, like I do sort of little experiments in CSS or stuff, and then say before we start programming, say like that's what I imagined. But that's as far as it goes, because I also think I want to understand what the developers do, and I want them to understand what I do. But in the end, this is not my everyday business, and I'm not good enough, in plain words, you know. But what I think there's a lot of stuff that's better done and tested in CSS than in Figma. And there is two examples. Like one is if you're working with typography and you want something like a fluid typography. So if you're using Clamp or Calc or something like this, then you cannot do that in Figma. So what I would, and I really, really like that, you know, especially as a designer, if you're working on something, a more sort of more designy page, then this like, it's really nice, but you also need a developer that says, I want to use that and I'm comfortable using that. And then what I would usually do with something like this, I would say, okay, give me sort of what I explained earlier, that I say I have these two master pages, like my mobile and my desktop page that I use as a master design. And I say, okay, let's establish at that size what the text is like. And then I'm going to do a style sheet, and I'm going to have my hierarchy because I need to set up my styles in Figma. But in between, it's going to be fluid, and we're later just going to make sure that we're going to have a look at it together to make sure it looks good. And so we have these two reference points that were very clear, that then I ship off the responsibility sort of to the developer to try this, and we look at it together. And the other one is, which is the one that's giving me most headaches right now, because I just did another course on responsive design, and that's also a big one, that we have auto layout. And if you look at the inspect tab, then it looks like it's Flexbox, but it's sort of Flexbox, but not really. And they even say that on the website in Figma. They say it's sort of it's inspired by Flexbox or something
Right,
like that.
right. I think I saw that as well. Yeah.
So it's like it says Flex, and when you look at it, and I use more CSS Grid than Flexbox. I'm not like an expert in Flexbox either. But what happens is that, so you have these things and it looks like it's Flexbox, but it doesn't. For example, they don't wrap into the next line like items. So you have to always create.
I spotted that. Yes.
So it doesn't work. And the other thing is you cannot have unequal distribution. So let me explain it with CSS Grid because I know that better. So if you're having FR units, you can sort of percentage distribute like items in a row,
right.
And you cannot do that with auto layout. Whenever you set them to fill, they fill equally. So you cannot have this percentage distribution. You could fix it, and then the rest is fluids. But we're explaining it like this, but if you try it in Figma, you see it. So then you have to trick around, and then you have to use a grid and constraints in Figma and put auto layout items in there. And so then it looks, when you're a developer, like I want you to use a grid. But so here I would really say, this is really, we show how we want stuff to look at certain points in Figma. And this is also the moment where I think it's important to say Figma is not a one-to-one representation of code. It's a tool to show and to plan. And then at this point, I think this is really, unless you're using a very basic standard grid system with breakpoints, you can mimic that perfectly in Figma. But everything a little more Flexbox, a little more CSS Grid, a little more adventurous, you would really have to sit with the developer, and you can say, this is the idea for this and this and this. And now let's see what happens really in the browser, because otherwise you could fake it in Figma, but I think you're going to spend more time faking it in Figma than sitting down 10 minutes.
Developer and actually figuring that out.
Yeah.
Maybe also speaking about that, I'm just curious at this point, maybe this is always a great question to ask, because it always brings some interesting value to the audience as well. Do you have any favorite plugins that kind of bring your world of Figma into even a better place? For example, one that I really like is Stark. It's on accessibility, where you can just check the color contrast and so many other things. And I mean, it's just incredible. Like accidentally, sometimes I would just say, let's do the search in Figma evening. And I think, okay, so what do I want to have? Maybe, can I do like pseudo localization? Like when I can actually change things for different languages and plug in text randomly from German and Norwegian and Spanish, and so just to see how the component behaves and if it works, and stress test it. German works best for that, of course. And I mean, it
Really
seems
good.
like I find everything. It's
It's
impossible to not find
amazing.
anything. The
It's
community
amazing.
is just huge. Do you have your favorites? Maybe you could also, I don't know if you know them, share the screen and show them. Not necessarily in your Figma file, but just so people can, like, if you just search for
What do you
them.
want? The Figma, wait, I can tell them to you. Well, I can tell you one with, do you want me to
Yeah.
share the screen?
Yeah, if it's interesting, if it's okay with you, so everybody can
Let me
knows what you're
close
talking
my
about.
very secret documents that I have.
Oh, let's not see that one.
Probably.
Let's pick another one.
Let me just put like a plain tab. Do I have sharing permissions?
Let me see. If not,
I think I
maybe...
do. I think I do.
Yes, I think you do.
Okay, so you guys, are you seeing my
Yep.
Figma screen?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Let me see. So, by the way, this was not prepared, so I'm just picking random.
I mean, we all
I'm just
a
picking
little
random
bit of
stuff.
yeah.
So one that I use all the time is Unsplash, that I think you guys know. Like, so this is like for adding imagery. So this is like really cool if you need sort of like quick avatars or images or interior. So you can just type anything, and this is really, really high resolution. And you can use it like they're royalty free. You're free to use them. So let me just see, what else do I have in my tab? One I am missing, by the way, which Figma tokens, obviously. One that I'm missing, and I'm using spell checker because I'm dyslexic, so I make errors everywhere when I type. And I use Grammarly for everything, and they don't have a Grammarly integration. So if someone out there is a Figma plugin developer, please give me a plugin that is a proper spell checker, because it's really, really terrible when you are dyslexic. Well, the Google Sheets one I really like. So what that does, I can't show you because I have nothing prepared. So what it does is you can link to a Google Sheet. So you can set up, so what you're saying, if you're testing, for example, components, you could set up a Google Sheets and you could put in the different languages. I wonder if it switches languages. I've never tried that, actually. And then what you do, let me just go here.
Sorry for putting you on spot, Christine. This is
I know,
not.
I'm sweating a bit, but it's all right. Because I had a great example.
Oh, look at how beautifully it is organized.
Look how lovely it is organized. Well, you don't want to see my layer naming. Oh, I cannot. No, wait. Hands on. Where's the hands on? No, sorry, you're putting me on the spot. I can't find it.
Okay.
But so yeah, the cool thing is, like, so you can store images and you can have a Google Sheet, and then you simply name the layer in Figma, and then it pulls in your Google Sheet. So you can set up a component and instances, and you can have a full page of instances, and then you just pull all the data from the Google Sheet, and then it populates it. So you can really work with real changing data. And they also have one for Airtable now and for Notion. So you can really start sort of connecting with real data, which obviously is really fantastic. And I would have liked to find that file because you populated and it goes, ooh, it's really nice.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Let me find one more. The breakpoint one, you can test breakpoints, but I rather test them by hand. And then
what is Endo? I never heard of AI Copilot for designers.
Oh, I tried that one. So this one is like to try out the new, the whole AI generated images that were like all over social media last week. And this was one for Figma. They're going to be there for a while, and I think they're going to be amazing. I tried it. It's very promising, but I didn't get the results I wanted. So, but I'm sure it does. It might also be I just tried it really quickly. And the thing that's really cool is obviously Figma tokens. So that you can connect with your real tokens. And I also heard that Figma is gonna bring out their own tokens soon. But what you can do, you can connect them with your tokens. You can just load their preset tokens. So here you get lots of tokens, and then you can really work with your real tokens and your spacing, because Figma, you can't set up like spacing properly. It doesn't do that. So here you can just like do more logic behind spacing and then apply that and things like that. Great.
I mean,
Okay,
to be
let
honest, I
me.
just like to see how other people work and what are some of the tools that they find extremely useful and helpful. So that's really, really great to see as well. Maybe actually when we speak about those things, do
Wait,
you
I'm
find,
trying to.
yeah?
It's not letting. I want to get out of the sharing, but it's not letting me
Oh,
go.
I think we can, no, I
Can
don't
you
want to,
unshare me?
uh,
No, let me unshare me.
I think you need to click on stop sharing.
I do that.
Here we go.
Got
Now
it.
I
Thank
have
you.
unshared you. Yes.
Thank you.
Adrian is also wondering, can you explain what is a token in this context?
Oh God, probably I'm going to ask Vitaly more to double check what I do. So tokens is like, someone had the other day on Twitter said something like, how do you explain token to your children? That was really nice.
So how would you
And I
explain token
didn't
to your
read that
children?
thread. I didn't read that thread. So I explain them, and you can say it from a developer point of view, probably better. So tokens is basically, if you work in Figma and you have styles, it's basically a smarter style. So you have tokens for color, and you have tokens for spacing, and for like literally everything. And then you can add sort of several tokens. So you can sort of add like a style to text, but you can also add certain spacing. And so when I looked at them in the beginning, I was like, why would I need a token plugin if I have styles? But it's just, tokens are just a little smarter, because you can sort of, with especially spacing is what Figma is really missing. So if you have auto layout, you can apply the tokens and you can specify them, and you can say 2 times the base value also of typography. And so you can create really nice dynamic scales and things like that. And if you're interested in tokens in Figma, I really recommend looking at that token plugin. It's called Figma Tokens, and they have a super, super great documentation where they explain it all in depth, and you can do really cool stuff. And you can use the same ones that you use in your actual programming in Figma, and you can also create them in Figma, store them in your tokens, and then later send them to use them for programming. So it goes both ways.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh, but it's always kind of a really fascinating story to me just to see everything that exists in the space of, in the Figma environment. Just yesterday, no, actually a couple of days ago, I think now, I discovered this, and I thought, wow, this is just absolutely incredible. So this is, for those of you who might be interested, this is Design Systems for Figma.
Yes.
It's
They're
a
really
collection,
good.
so I'm going to paste in the link here as well. And
oh, and the one I really recommend is the one you're just on, the Decathlon one is so good.
which one? Which one?
The Decathlon, if you go down.
Oh, Decathlon, really?
Yeah, they have a super, super nice design system. And you can really see all the, so they have it in Figma, but if you go to decathlon.design, by the way, I always recommend it, I don't work for Decathlon. If you go to decathlon.design, then you can see that this is done in zero height. And you can see all the code if you go on the top on digital.
I just have this thing here.
Yeah,
right.
so there you really see, and then you see all the code, and then you see Figma, and also there, if you want to see how they're using grids and spacing and all of that, they explain that really nicely. And you can also always download the Figma file to work along, and then you can see how they set up their Figma file and how they document it. And this is, for me, by far the best one I've seen lately. Really like it.
Interesting. So I think the one that I really liked was, first of all, I think that the one that's really well done is, I think, what was the IBM's one? Carbon.
Yeah, the Carbon.
Carbon design system is really nice. I mean, I just go into a lot of, I mean, obviously there are also design kits as well, but I think there was one particular one that really excited me in some way, which was, I think, Workbench by Gusto. Do you know that one?
No, didn't know that one.
So this is, I mean, it's like, here we go. We're going to geek out about design systems now. Anybody else is just happy to geek out about design systems? Maybe in the chat. If you have some fancy links to share, please go. So one thing that I kind of like here is that whenever you go into one of the components, so there are some guidelines and things to do, things not to do. Maybe that's not the one that I meant. Maybe there was another one. I'll have to find it now as well. I think, hold on, let me just check. Because it was like something that we were looking at as well here. So this was, hold on, this is something else that we were doing here. This was from Workday. Here we go. What I really like is that they have flowcharts. So for every component. So basically, you can say, okay,
nice.
what should I do? Like for this kind of problem that I have in front of me, right? Oh, here we go. We have Amy being a total design system nerd. Amy, we are glad to have you with us. Please send us some links in here. And it says, oh, I love design systems. That's great. So this is really so cool because for every single component, you can say, okay, so what is the problem that you're solving? And then basically, you kind of follow this flowchart and you get your mockup really. And the one that I really find fascinating, by the way, is the one from Audi design system. And we have Kat. Hello, Kat. Good to see you here as well. Atlassian design. I mean, there's so many design systems. Are we going to at some point just stop doing design systems? I mean, no. Why should we? They're great, right? There is one thing that I think really stands out here, and I think it's actually quite common now for many design systems. Let me see if I can find the components
See, I'm
here.
always missing the Figma part in the design system.
True. Yes.
Because
Yes.
that's like, and that's I think where, because I always want to see like, okay, so this is like the finished thing for programming, but where's my design part?
Yeah, exactly. So one thing that
There's
they
a
do
bit of
have,
Figma. Yeah, there
yeah,
they do have
they
it.
have it all. But one thing that they really do, which I think is actually quite cool, every now and again they have these do and don'ts, but they also have these examples, like usually plenty of examples of, okay, this is what it looks like in the context. So if you go to something like a navigation bar, I mean, if you look at this, all right, so, but how exactly would I use it for a particular use case? And so if you scroll down, typically they would have this all the different examples of this navigation use, which I think is actually quite neat. So kind of providing designers then with examples. Okay, we do this, and this is what it looked like in one of those cases, one of those projects, and so on and so forth. Right, so that's actually quite neat to see. But yeah, so it's kind of the same story with me. So whenever I start, I see this download button for Figma Kit, I feel like I found a gem. I found like a gold mine or something like that.
And you know what's really cool? What you can do, I think, since a year or something in Figma, is you can just copy. If you did a prototype in Figma, then you can just so you can do flows. So you don't have the whole
Right.
prototype. You just say like, I want just to show like a login or something. Then you go to the prototyping tab, and then you copy that link. And then you paste that link into sort of a common design system, things like Zero Height or whatever you're using, Notion, whatever. And then it gives you, you can live test, you can live see the prototype. So if you're in there, then you can click through the prototype.
Oh,
So you could have your documentation of your forms, and then you can have a live form in action, and you can see the hover effects and all of these things.
All right. Yes. So I think that this is what I'm probably going to do tonight. I think this is it. This is it.
You go ahead.
Here we go. We also have Cass saying GovUK might be my favorite. They will respond to your questions too. And also Cass sent the link to the GovUK Figma file as well.
Nice.
It's incredible. It's so great to see. I'm wondering, Christina, you see probably a lot of Figma files all over the place by different designers doing, different things. So maybe, you just found your particular way of which would most efficient, most optimized, like for you. Would you say that there are certain things that you think more designers could be doing to boost their productivity? So for example, the way we organize things, the way we, I don't know, work with auto layout, or I don't know, anything else where you feel like, oh, when I discovered this was great. This is the moment that changed the way I work in Figma. Do you have some little magician tricks and techniques that you discovered that you can just pull out of the hat and say, here, designers, let's do that now, from now on?
I mean, I wish it was one of my files that I show you, but actually, if you want I'm always blown away by the files. I think you also shared one of those lately by Joey Banks. So Joey Banks, I put that in the chat. If you go to the Figma community and you look at Joey Banks' files, he worked for Figma. He's now working with Webflow, I think.
Webflow, yeah.
And his files are just so neat and so.
Yes.
It's really, it's so I don't think there is a thing that I say, this is how you set it up. It's this typical thing again, for what you're building, he just thinks about it in a way that I'm like, oh my God, this is like so clear. I look at your file and after a minute, I get everything. You look at other files and after an hour, like, huh, what? That does that. So he has some really cool way of playing with properties, really cool way of playing with variants. And I think like, actually, if you're working with variants, he did this dark light mode thing. Where he uses variants for dark light mode. And I think that's probably not going to be the right way always if you have your variants for other things as well. I like using variants for actually my different breakpoints. So I set up a component set with variants, and then I call it responsive, that property. And then whenever I use that variant, I know it has different, it's not just changing size, but there's actually a different design for different breakpoints. So that is one thing that I really like using, which I think makes it easier to follow that whole responsive mess. that you're creating. But yeah, in general, I would just say like look at those Joey Banks files as well, because they're just, you're like wow, so clean.
Yeah,
He uses he names all his layers, and he uses little icons where you have property input and stuff like that. So the naming layers, I always say that, like, you have to name your layers, and then you look at my file, and I just had one frame 1025 the other day or something like that. Because if you're designing, I also think there's a different moment. There's a moment to design, and then I don't clean, I don't do auto layout, I don't do all of that, I don't document, I just design. And then later you clean. But people have different approaches to that.
Sure, of course.
And it's just very painful when the cleaning moment comes after you've been designing.
Eventually, once you have created, I don't know,
Like
1,000
in
frames, then
real
it's
life, in real life, and in Figma, it's the pain moment. But well,
yeah. But I think like for me, it was really interesting just to see, you know, in the past, pre-COVID times, of course, it would be, you know, designers like get together on the whiteboard and let's do certain things, and kind of we're going to figure it out and all that. And then for me, it was a kind of almost a magical moment when I really started working a bit more in this collaborative space when, you know, when it came, you know, when the COVID came. And I was so excited every single time when I would see cursor moving. Felt like, oh, I'm not alone in this file. Do you have
they're
that
really
as well?
nice.
Like
Yeah,
sometimes I'm
I
like,
love the little
I'm not alone there. I'm
and you
not
can
alone.
like, I think if you move them fast, you can give like little high fives.
Yeah. Oh, so this is it an etiquette now? You just wave with the cursor?
I mean, I use Figma very little, but I use it for like the workshops we did, and it is really cool because you can like do little pictures, and you see people reacting. You can ask them questions, and I also think there's a lot happening in Figma that as I said, it's just not. I'm just more busy with the design, but there's a lot of integrations and a lot of stuff in Figma as well for working as a team remote.
Yeah, so it's always fun to be kind of working in the same space and kind of seeing those things happening. And sometimes we would have conversations via comments. It's like, well, we can just jump on a call, or we could just use Slack. And sometimes you would see people leaving notes to each other and then changing notes and then changing a label and kind of operating and commenting on the label, like having a conversation about the label in a form by changing the label's name. This is like, I don't know, I like this intricate kind of, I don't know, some social components of that as well. So that's really fun.
I think it's really amazing what they did, and it's also like, it was funny when they had the whole sale and stuff, because it was, people got so upset, and I think it is because it's so personalized. It's so you can, or even the community, like you can send messages and they reply and they help you with stuff. And they like had a question about a teaching thing, and they sent me this little video where they showed me how to do it, and like it's very approachable. And I really hope it stays that way. It's a really special software, and always, like, it always has this very human factor, even though it's very tech, if you think about it.
Absolutely. Speaking about human factor, I'm curious at this point. I mean, we talked a lot, actually more than we expected to be about Figma, but I'm wondering, what is next for you, Christine? Do you think like, okay, this is it, I'm going to have some new courses coming up soon, so I want to record, I don't know, 15 more and then put it out there for people to learn? Or what is kind of the next big thing that you're looking forward to on your agenda?
So, I mean, it is really like that I have sort of a set agenda for Moon Learning. So that one part is going to finish like this year, which is sort of the Figma section. And as I said, it's like the UX UI. And then I have one big section, which I did, which is called understanding things in UX UI. So this is more about really typography and colors and everything in general. And now it's a Figma part. And then next year I am starting the code and the no code part. So that I'm really excited, because there's also stuff that I haven't been doing for a while. So I really, really like getting back and trying stuff out and really building again, because if you haven't used something for a year or two, then it's just like, it's a whole new thing. So there's going to be going back into HTML and CSS. I really like going back to the basics. As I said, Webflow. I'm looking at some other stuff that I'm doing. And so that I want to be Moon Learning sort of one sort of set road. And then I would like, and then probably have to do 1,000 updates when updates come. So that's when everything's on the next.
This is what I wanted to ask
that's
next.
super annoying.
Yes, isn't it? It's like it's always bothering me so much.
Oh no, 50 courses I have to redo. But yeah, that's just how it is. And then I would really, really like to go more into 3D and that sort of stuff. I have a few friends They run a company in Berlin called Wolfspinair, and they're doing amazing stuff. And they got in it by chance as well, and they're doing sort of a metaverse thing where you can walk through, and it's really great. And I really don't understand how that stuff is programmed. I really don't, like, my head doesn't understand how you set up these 3D sceneries. So this would be really something that I would love to learn from zero and to really understand, and then to show that, because I think it's going to be a big part of UI design in the future. Maybe not that right now. I think we can't directly relate that to UI design, but I think it's going to be a big part, and I would really like to understand and explain that also in Moon Learning, like how that works. And maybe I don't even know what I'd be using, like if it was Blender or Maya or what, and just like do my first steps.
Well,
and
maybe Figma 3D. Who knows what it's going to show?
I don't know. Maybe they're
like
founding a new one. But
yes,
I think that's a very exciting topic that in the long run I'd like to understand a little better.
Right. And actually, when you're producing your courses, do you do like the editing on your own as well? Or do you, I mean, for me, editing would be like an enormous amount of work. I mean, I
love
cannot
it.
even imagine.
I love it.
Really?
I have a very geeky side. I love editing and I love doing my taxes. So I like bookkeeping. I think I don't know.
Oh, so this might explain the way you organize your Figma file, right?
Yeah, that way. This explains a lot. So I actually really like editing.
You have folders all over the place.
I have folders, and I have
like
lists
for every year probably, and all the receipts and everything.
I think my superpower is keeping very clean lists, which is a very sad superpower to have, but it's my superpower.
No, not necessarily. I mean, Jaran here in the chat says that he would kindly ask you to do his admin.
I can do that. I always say that in my next life, I'm just going to do like bookkeeping for designers, because that's another thing.
Oh, this is exciting.
So I really like that sort of stuff. I think when I do a lot of creative work, at some point I'm also tired of it. It's sort of like, ugh. And then I really like sort of organizing the stuff and cutting it and editing it, and so I think for me personally, that's a really great balance. And it's really funny because the first thing when people say, or when they say, hey, we want to produce a course with you or something, they always say, we do the editing for you. And then they were like, they expect me to be like, oh, great.
You don't have to do that.
And I'm like, no, I do the editing. So I don't even know how it would work if someone else did my edit. I can't even imagine it, how that would work. It's like it's my course. I have to do the editing. You can do the marketing for me. If someone wants to do my social media, please
that would be sounds like a really nice trade-off where you could do the accounting and somebody could do the marketing.
I think we have to get away from the accounting because I'm really scared I'm going to get emails that people want me to do their accounting. I'm not doing accounting.
I think that's looking at the chat right here.
I think we have a deal. Yeah, maybe I'm going to close down Moon Learning. It's still going to do accounting from now on.
Yeah. So, and Anne says, well, sounds like Christine could work on design systems. I can see that. Yeah.
I can see. Yeah, you have to be a little bit compulsive for that sort of stuff. You have to embrace it in a good way, I think. Yeah, and so but for me, it's like the whole marketing, social media. That's the stuff I'm like happily let anyone else do that. Which I think a lot of people really enjoy the social media part about marketing courses. But I'm more like, it's finished. Like someone tell other people it's out there. And
that sounds like I mean, I don't know. For me, it's always like a story. I need to, first of all, it takes a while to just gather everything together and have this really kind of clear plan of what is it I want to do. But then I would normally I actually did that. Like I did decide to experiment in video editing. First, I learned that I'm really bad at video editing. So that was the first insight that I got. But this is probably the only negative one. And then came the time when I realized, wow, I can do that. But it takes an incredible amount of time. So an incredible amount of time. But maybe we should talk more.
I think it takes me a whole day to do 10 minutes video.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
It's crazy. Yeah,
that's reasonable. Of course.
That's good that you're saying that. I'm always scared when I look at the output. I'm like, that was my day.
No, I think looking at your courses and the output of your work and also the trainings and workshops and everything that you're doing, it seems like you have so much passion in it and you just transports all over.
Yeah, I really like it. It's a good job I've had.
I can totally see. By the way, dear friends, now that we're talking about this, of course, we are very much looking forward to have Christine joining us for a wonderful Figma workshop. That is Figma. Is it going to be accounting? No, Figma.
It's
you
gonna.
want to go.
I'm never gonna get rid of this accounting thing now.
No, probably not. No.
Probably not. It's gonna be mentioned in New York on a stage. I'm scared.
I'm afraid so, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are definitely looking forward to this, or excuse me, for all my little tabs that I have here, of course, because we have a wonderful course coming up. Where is it? Here, I found it. Christine, I found it. So it would be on November 17th, December 1st, where you can learn a lot about everything. Like, what should we be expecting there? Like,
well, that's the online
except
course.
accounting, of course.
Except accounting, there's going to be zero accounting on that. There's also not, it's not about design systems, if you guys also got excited about that. It's really about the Figma workflow. So if you're a basic Figma user and you want to really jump in a little deeper into your file setup and everything. So it's 5 days, like 2.5 to usually I need 3 hours. And we're going to start the first day with general setup. Then we're going to do the second day. What's the second day? I think it's components. So really, how do we organize our components? How do we set them up, start from zero and then go to more advanced things like component properties and stuff. Then we do color, typography, styles. Then I think the day that everybody liked the most, which I'm also going to do in the New York workshop, is the constraints and auto layout and responsive design and testing and all of that. And then on day 5, we're going to do, which people also like because it's really nice, the prototypes you can do by now in Figma. We're going to do prototyping and the famous handoff.
I'm excited. Well, the boomeranging.
And we also were talking exactly about that, like what do we hand off and at what place, but it's more about the technicality. So it's basically we're running through Figma really from the beginning to the end, through all the important features, and you should have a few basics. And with the course, you get access though to the Moon Learning courses, and so you could take the basic class online for like this will be included in that course before you start to just like if you're switching from another software. How to set up frames, because people get a little confused with the Figma interface in the beginning. It takes like a day or so. Like it's a 2-hour beginner's course you can take beforehand and then sort of adjust to Figma and then get advanced.
Sounds great. And I also heard rumors that I'm going to see you next week in New York. So Christine is also going to join us in Smashing Conf New York. So we're obviously for a talk and also for a workshop. Will it be similar or will it be a bit different workshop?
Well, the talk is about, I'm touching a few subjects that we talked about today. So it's going to be about Figma for developers, like showing features that I think could be really great to improve your conversation between design and development. So different features, little different tricks. So that's just a short, I think, half-an-hour talk or something. And then in the workshop, that's sort of a reduced version of the large workshop. So I'm starting with the components and auto layout. And so it's that condensed. So we're leaving out sort of the general color theory and setups and prototyping because it's just a shorter amount of time.
Yes, excellent. Andre has 2 notes. One of them I have to mention is Andre is a filmmaker switching to UX design. Good choice. So I think we have a lot in common here. And the other question was, if we buy this course, we have access to Moon Learning as well. Is that right?
So yeah, that's the Smashing Conference. If that like the Smashing Conference course, that is a live course. So I'll be live teaching. It's like this session basically, but you can ask questions. And as part of the course, because sometimes people were like, I don't know what level I have, you can get access to the Moon Learning, to the whole Moon Learning membership for 1 month. I usually give access to like 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. And then you can, if you feel that you need to catch up with your Figma, you can take the beginner's course or you can like look into courses. But if you have basic Figma, if you can set up a basic design, then you really don't need to do any preparation, and you're going to get recordings of this, so you can revisit it and you have a practice file and that sort of stuff. So
perfect,
very interactive.
All right, now that we are nearing the full hour already, now the time flew by very, very quickly. Maybe at this point, Christine, I could ask you a question that I usually ask, and that would be, well, the web is an interesting place. There are many interesting things happening. We've seen everything from Flash to parallax to boring designs to simple designs to flat, and I mean parallax is still around. It's just kicking a little bit.
I'm trying to survive that.
That's okay. But I'm wondering, if you look at the design space, like in everything that we see now on the web and all, do you have, let's say, a wish list of things that would have been different or should be different or can be different in the future? I mean, obviously, it's nobody wants to kind of to be, I don't know, creating forecasts of what the future is going to bring. But I'm curious if there are anything that you would like to see more on the web, less on the web, looking back at the wonderful times when we used to have Flash, or maybe not so wonderful times when we used to have Flash, but looking forward into wonderful times when we are going to have some remarkable, interesting, exciting designs. What do you want to see more on the web, Christine?
More on the web. Oof,
Experiments, like everything broken, everything, I don't know, flashy music, audio, and whatnot, or not?
I actually, this is a very, like, probably the designer response. I actually quite like to see it a little more reduced. I have this whole screaming at me. It's just not the style that I like for my personal things. So I like, I'm also really excited even about sort of voice controls and things like that, and how we can make them sleek, because it's a bit controversial, because if I'm saying voice controls, it's literally I'm eliminating what I'm doing. But I think there's very exciting ways about how they can work and how they can work together. So this is something that, yeah, I'd like to see, like voice controls. And I think what I mentioned before, the whole 3D space, it's sort of tacky right now still when you look at them, and it's like these universes and stuff. But I think there's going to be a lot happening in that, and I don't think we're all going to walk around with goggles. I think it's going to be just a very exciting thing. And I think though the voice control, that's already there, and I think a lot of stuff can be done with that. And I'd like to see a super minimalistic voice control page and be like, wow.
Oh, that's interesting. I can totally see you kind of moving away from saying designing and video editing into audio editing. That would be just a full kind of picture, a full circle right there. So that's exciting to see. I'm very, very much excited to the future as well. And dear friends joining us here today, thank you so much for joining us. And maybe we will see you in New York, or maybe we'll see you online.
Yes.
Obviously, again, just a quick reminder, you will find plenty of really cool things and also incredible work by Christine here in one of the workshops that we are running, but also in moonlearning.io. And please connect with Christine on LinkedIn and on Twitter and on, I don't know, anything else? Is it like Be Real is a thing now? I have no idea.
I have no idea what that is. No, I do the
TikToking, Christine, dancing?
No, I think I use if you use the 960 grid, and you're too old for TikToking.
It's like, if it's 960, it's like there is something TikToky around it, no?
Yeah, I don't know. I should. As I said, social media is my weak spot. If anybody wants to do social media, it's a social media
in exchange for accounting services.
In exchange, not for accounting, but in exchange for Figma.
Okay,
I will be very interested in that.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, Christina, for joining as well.
Thank you.
And don't forget, we also have another Smashing Hour with Sarah Soidan coming up in a month or so. I'm sure that my dear colleague, Jaran, will be sending a link at some point, or maybe you will be getting a message from us as well. In the meantime, have a wonderful rest of the day, and I hope to see you soon. And thank you so much for coming. And thank you again, and please a round of clap emoji to Christine for coming and sharing her insights with us as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. See you next time.